As you know, he's an entrepreneur and an angel investor. For me, he's one of the most interesting lecturers that we have visiting, because he's a living example of what an entrepreneur is. So I think you're going to gain valuable knowledge and information regarding this specific aspect. So without further ado, Thomas, the deck is yours. We'll be back soon.
Excellent, thank you. Hi everybody. So the topic of this talk is launch early, launch fast. That's the core mantra of it. And this whole talk is about like how perfection can be a trap for founders, basically shipping beats waiting. And that sounds very obvious, but I've seen it gone wrong many, many times, and I will bring you a lot of like practical examples, both from me as well as from companies we invested in, how to do it right and maybe how to overthink it. I'll share tactics, so let's dive right in. Have you guys ever hesitated to show somebody any idea because it wasn't yet perfect? It needed a little twist or show. I definitely have. And this is a problem of it at all. Let me tell you a little bit about my story so you know who I actually are. So I'm Thomas. I was born in '77 in Berlin, Germany. Now I live in Cyprus. And this was I was always a tech nerd. So this was my first computer. And I was able to get online with this computer with that device. Does anybody know what that device is? No. Okay, it's a so-called acoustic coupler. So what you did is you dialed up your ISP, you took your headset, you put it in there, and then it very slowly connected to the internet. The stuff obviously doesn't exist anymore, but it allowed me to, 1992 or whatever, nerd around and learn stuff about the internet. I quickly realized this is what I want to do for my life, so I basically started my first software company right after high school when I was 19, and so I became an entrepreneur. So for the next 20 or so years, I started programming software for money. And that went very well, it was quite successful. Our company grew from a small garage company to a couple of hundred people. And in 2020, I sold that last software company I did and became a software investor, an angel investor, basically. So changed tables, providing young entrepreneurs with hopefully good ideas and nonetheless money. I don't do this alone. I do this with 7 other ladies and gentlemen. We are called Expedite Ventures. We are basically a business angel group. Everybody of us is a CTO or CPO. Everybody started a company. Everybody knows how it is to go through that first pain, through that first hustle, and we help with like sharing our ideas, giving feedback, and giving money. And I recently even started to become an entrepreneur again. So I started another software company. This is me programming code in an airplane just 2 weeks ago. So I know both sides of the table, and I want to give you some insights about like how to launch your idea, your product, your company. And the mantra right now is like launch now. There's this famous quote from Reid Hoffman, who is the founder of LinkedIn, a software multi-billionaire. If you're not embarrassed by your first version you're launching, you definitely launch too late. And this has been often quoted, but it's still very, very true. And it hasn't always been true. When I started doing software products, we shipped software in boxes like on CD-ROMs and that kind of stuff. So once it was out, you couldn't change it. Nowadays, you have anything on the internet, you can change stuff all you do at any time. So it gives you definitely a speed advantage. So the first impression of what you do, and I think that's the most important thing to realize, isn't final. You can always refine. And you should refine not because you have the greatest ideas in the world, because user feedback. This is like the most important thing, and the stuff which really goes wrong. And we are all guilty of it. A very good friend of mine, also angel investor, running companies since 20 plus years, has every VC in Europe on his speed dial phone book. Everybody knows him, he holds talks, just like I do. And he recently started a company with another guy together, and he raised $10 million just out of pitch deck, because people believed in him, you know, okay, successful back and whatever. And he wanted to do it really right this way, so he took his time, and he programmed staff, he hired a great agency from the US who did like UX for Slack and Uber and all the big names. And like after a couple of months, I asked, hey, can I see a first version of the code? Yeah, it's coming soon. And after a couple of months, hey, what about the product? I mean, I'm progressing the, yeah, don't wait, it's just final touches, final touches. That went on and on and on. After more than a year, he showed me and other investors the product, and to be honest, even he's a dear friend of mine, we were not impressed. It was really a product which did stuff, but nobody could find any use in it. So basically they shut down the company and returned the money to the investors. It can happen to anybody. And that is the main point. Now can you still ask, okay, why the rush? I can still take my time and refine it and then I start building it again, because your ideas usually don't exist in a vacuum. I think this is the most annoying sentence every investor ever hears. Yeah, I have this great idea and nobody else in the world is doing this. We are the first, we are the only. When sentences start with we are the only, you know something is right. Either they are the smartest person on the planet, or 99% they're really dumb. Because to imagine that in a world where you're competing against US, China, Singapore, Germany, France, UK, whole of Africa, nobody is having your idea, nobody is having the skills to do that. Wow, that almost never happens. So somebody else, most likely, has the same idea because it's maybe the right time. I mean, before we had broadband internet, nobody could build YouTube. But at the right time, people built YouTube. But there were a lot of other streaming services, so who knows, somebody else could have money to do it. And the thing is, every extra month you spend on polishing, you're basically losing. You're losing out months in learning. And that is the important thing. You need to get real feedback from real users. That's why they all fail. That's why my friend failed. And you have to launch before you think you're ready. It must be really embarrassing. You really must feel the pain. And in the VC world, or in the investor world, or in startup world, there's an acronym or a name for it. Acronyms for everything. And the acronym is MVP. I'm sure every one of you heard that. It's a minimum viable product. Again, it's a minimum viable product, not a maximum viable product. And people have very different interpretations of what an MVP should be. Do you guys remember the app Yo? Somebody? Okay. When the iPhone came out, and the App Store came out, around 2010, 2011, one guy from Israel built a social network, a new app. That app was called Yo. And it had exactly one functionality. You could send your friends the word Yo. That's it. He raised $1 million, which was big at the time, and built an app. That's what I really would call an MVP. And people started even building with that super limited functionality. You can have Yo when your famous soccer team was scoring. FedEx built an app where you get a Yo when your package was delivered. I'm not saying this is the greatest idea ever, and he failed. But that really shows what an MVP is. So if somebody can build an app which sends Yo, then you should really think whether all the stuff you want to build on top is really, really necessary to move on. So viable means just enough to test your ideas. You test your hypothesis. It's not feature-rich, it's not flawless. It just does something. I mean, I'm sure everybody of you once had a product which was definitely buggy and not great, but it did something which you found valuable. Everybody has one. Heck, the first iPhone didn't have copy and paste, and it has a shitty 2G internet connection where it took 1.5 minutes to load a web page. That's really an embarrassing MVP, but I mean, hey, it worked apparently. So MVPs can and should suck. That's totally okay. And the thing is, it's not about to win awards or any shiny prizes with that. MVPs answer questions. They answer the question, is your idea great? It is just enough to test your idea. Does somebody find it interesting enough to spend his time, or maybe even his money, to deal with it? And that is the only thing. Nobody cares whether it's buggy or it's not working or whatever. You have to test your idea instead of building something in a vacuum and think, oh, I will get it right because I'm smarter than anybody else. So many people are like, embarrassed, oh, when I get it wrong and nobody will talk to me. Don't worry, nobody knows about your little small product anyway. nobody will notice. It's so hard to get media attention these days. So even if everybody thinks you're a total loser, there are billions of people out there in the world who still can make use of it. So don't worry to be kind of embarrassed. So you have to really strip it down. What is the minimum functionality, the minimum simplest version which could generate some value? And what you should do is you should write down the assumptions, the stuff you want to test, and make sure you get a yes or no. Test them with the MVP. That is very important to understand what MVP is, because that's usually the first thing people build. And by the way, it's not just software, it could be also the next energy drink or whatever. If you build that and nobody wants to drink your energy drink because it's too sweet or too sour or the packaging is shit or I don't know what, it applies to basically every product in the service. Now as we covered MVP basics, let's get to like 5 lessons how you actually scale from your idea to somebody's actually paying for it. And there's this famous quote from Paul Graham, who runs Y Combinator, so the most successful startup school or startup seed fund in the world. It says, do things that don't scale. And that's very important. Don't over-engineer, in other words. You have to do things which you definitely know this is not built for the future, and it's just an ugly hack, but it works for now. And the first thing what you need to do, which nobody does, or not enough people do, is get out of the building and find your users. People have this idea that startups imaginary take off because somebody, wow, now I built Dropbox and I finally can sync my files, and now the whole world wants it. That is not how it works. Startups take off because founders make them take off. There's a huge, huge amount of work behind it before you even heard about that there's something like Dropbox or whatever. Two examples. So maybe you know Stripe, the company. Most valuable software company, private software company in the world right now. $95 billion valuation. Founded by 2 90-year-old brothers from Ireland, Collins brothers. And what they basically did is they made credit card transaction easy. Easy to integrate in websites, online stores, your SaaS software, whatever. And before that, it was like super hard because you had to fill out 500 forms, shitty interfaces didn't work. And I remember the first website was basically just online. So what they did is they went to every conference, like e-commerce conferences or whatever, find people who actually have that problem, meaning I need to accept credit card transactions, told them about the idea, and if that person even sounded remotely interested, cool, let's sit down, here's my laptop, let's integrate that code together. And they sat down with these people for an hour or 2 or 3 until Stripe was integrated in their website. Does it scale? No, but it worked. It got first traction because they personally sat down with people. Other examples, Airbnb. I mean, everybody knows Airbnb. And after they got their website up and running, they even found like enough people who offered apartments in New York, but nobody booked them. And why is that? Because the pictures were so shitty. I mean, we are not talking about a time when everybody has this like 48 megapixel super camera in their pocket. No, that all looked like really, really, really shitty. So what they basically did is they rented a huge professional camera and they went from customer to customer in New York and took the pictures of their apartments themselves. Can look that for if it's true. So it's unscalable early hustle, but it really, really pays off in the long end if you do that. So if you build software, you have 2 tasks, write code and talk to people. Everything else is there. So you have to find those users manually. And don't automate anything. Don't scale. You don't even need a sign-up page. Just make them call you or call them or write an email or whatever. You create an account for them. It doesn't matter. It's all manual recruiting. And that is, by the way, also the reason why investors love it so much when there are at least 2 people starting a company, because one can focus building the product and one can go out, hustle and talk to people. It's really, really hard to build a product and talk to all these people if you're just one person. So that's basically the reason. And you will get a lot of rejections, but that doesn't matter. You should treat like every outreach like kind of an experiment. It's like you keep notes on it and you keep on refining your pitch. He said, okay, I don't like this, so next turn you tell blah, 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 I changed that and whatever. So it is like learning about your audience and learning how to convince them. Even if you later have a sales team or whatever, they also need to know what do I tell these people. And this is like the knowledge you're basically building for the company. So pick 10, 20 people who you think they need your product. Again, whatever it is, software, energy, I don't care. And personally convince them, reach out and sit down with them. And sometimes I see a little bit in your face, it's like, oh, he's telling these startup stories, it doesn't apply to me, and blah, 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 and it's just, we need to hustle more. No, let me give you a perfect personal example. We invested last year in a company called iterating. That happened because I met the founder like 10 years in 2015 on a conference in Austin, Texas. And he was on the panel, I loved his talk, I talked to him, he invited me to dinner, we talked, and blah, blah, blah. And 10 years later, I'm coming to New York, I'm writing, hey, by the way, I'm coming to New York. I know he's also doing a fund, and he had an exit of the company, and said, yeah, you know what, I'm building again. And he told me about this idea. And agree.com, and maybe to give you an idea of who this guy is. That guy had a company which he exited to Eventbrite, so he was the head of engineering at Eventbrite, so money is not his biggest problem, I guess, in this world. And so he sold that, and he talks at conferences, blah, blah. This is not like some, oh, I got a hustle founder, this guy already did it. And we said, okay, that's great, what do you want to build? He said, I'm building a DocuSign killer. Because DocuSign, you know, the company where you can sign contracts electronically, it's a huge pile of shit. It's really, if you have to use it, I mean, I sign like 2 contracts a day, it's really, really, really annoying. It has a terrible user interface. It sucks, you have to fill out all the data again. It's just not a great software. It does what it does, but given it's like a multi-billion-dollar company listed at NASDAQ, it's not a great software. So he said, we're gonna replace that with that bold thing. I mean, there's more to it what they actually do, but interesting is how he started it. The first thing he did, because a couple of weeks after he incorporated the company, together with 3 other people, there was this large Salesforce conference called Dreamforce. It's the largest software conference in the world. And at Dreamforce, people are there to buy CRMs. Usually people who manage lots of customer data have contracts which need to be signed. So his customers are there. So he just rented, and usually these coffees at this conference are terrible. So what he did is he just rented a coffee cart. The founder stood there, made coffees, gave flyers out, and talked with people, hey, do you know about Agree.com? I mean, a guy who had an exit to a multi-billion-dollar company. He wasn't like, that was okay for him. So that's the first thing he did. Next thing, I brought you on video. It's so funny, you can see it on his LinkedIn. Every time he went to an airport, you know, there are always these like book stores where you can buy magazines. So he went on, and he always brought little flyers. And he goes into that bookstore, he looks where is the section for business magazines. Oh, Forbes. That sounds interesting, and starts putting his flyers into these magazines. That's how you hustle. That's what you do. Entrepreneur magazine, awesome, Wired, here we go. Again, he's getting up half an hour earlier to get to the airport and put cards in all these magazines. Next thing he did is, I fell off my chair when I saw that. New York, he went to Dunkin' Donuts, bought donuts. Then he took stickers about like sign your contracts now on agree.com and put it into the cart of the donuts and went to a WeWork, because usually people who are sitting at a co-working space will sign contracts sooner or later. So he just goes into that WeWork, goes to the main table, and just puts the free donuts in there with the agree.com and talks to everyone who takes a donut. That's what I'm referring to if I say unscalable process, finding your first users manually. That's manual work. You sit in a WeWork and you talk to people who see, oh, well, sandwiches, yeah, why not? Have a donut, let's talk. That's what you actually need to do. If you do that right, you will get the first people who love whatever you've built. it is super important that these people get the most VIP treatment ever from you. These are the most important people. They will carry your message in the world. There was one startup famously who, the founder sent a handwritten note to every new customer via mail. I mean, when is the last time you got a handwritten thank you note from a company? So it really makes you stand out. So these users, you need to make them super happy. You need to do off the charts VIP customer service. Because early on, it's not the product, which is, as Apple always says, insanely great. It is your service. Your whole thing you build around it, the user experience, which must shine, which must be insanely good. Even a buggy product, people will forgive you for that. There's even psychologists who found out that people who have a buggy product and get it fixed are more happy customers than if the product worked from the beginning on. So that's how human psychology works. And that is your superpower as a small startup, even as a one-person company, because that is what no big corporation in the world does. No big corporation in the world delivers written thank you notes. No CEO goes to WeWork and buys donuts for these people right down there. And then this personal calls, your quick fixes, your instant response. I'll tell you a story later about that, how we did that. And if you do that right, this love you give to them translates, first of all, in loyalty, and then into retention. They stay your customers if your product gets better, and then referral. They will talk about you, whatever it is. And again, no startup ever failed because you cared too much. This will not happen, I can guarantee you this. So care about the people who start using. While you do that, you might end up a little bit in the trap which I was talking about, still in the trap which I was talking about of my friend, that you're building something nobody wants. It is like genius in a garage. The users just don't get it. So you talk to them and say, no, it's all not good. They are idiots. I mean, come on, I know it, blah, blah, blah. These conversations are usually brutal, which you have, and they will tell you not what works, they will just tell you what doesn't work. And that is great, because in the end, you should love the problem you're solving and not the idea. What you have to think, what problem are you actually solving? They are solving the problem that you have to have better e-signatures online, or somebody else is solving the problem that the user experience is bad, whatever. Whatever you're solving, but it's not your idea. That idea can pivot around, and that is okay, because if you get feedback early and watch users interact, ask open questions, get that feedback, then you have to stay like flexible, because that feedback is like super, super valuable. If people say pivot, you should embrace it. If they say, hey, it's a great idea, but wouldn't it be great if, then you should really listen to that and not fall into this trap of, oh no, he's talking that, no, I know, I thought about this like 500 million times, I know how it is. It is real user feedback. They see it for the first time, and they don't lie to you, why would they? So pivoting isn't failure, it's progress. It is how your product grows. You talk, you listen, you adapt. And that's the only way how you can reach the so-called magic product market fit. That's the only way. Nobody thought something out in the garage and then it just magically works. Pivoting isn't failure, pivoting is progress. Out of all these people you're talking to, you will have something like early adopters, which become super fans. Because they feel the pain most. Somebody who's willing to take a really shitty version of a new product and go all the pain and see what it all can do, because it does one thing so good that they are willing to accept any other pain just to use your product. And these people are your superpower. So, because they tell you what your ideal customer is, the ICP, the ideal customer profile. You really, really understand what it is. And many people start by solving a problem for themselves, and that's perfectly fine. I did many products that just by, oh, I hate this, couldn't that be done better? Yeah, and that's totally fine. But if you see along the way, hey, there's another group emerging, which is maybe even bigger, or where it makes even more sense, then don't shy away. But you need to paint a real picture, and who is buying your product? Is it the CEO, is it an analyst, is it a student, is it a housewife, whatever. And unfortunately, many pitches, I mean, you get hundreds of pitches don't know when I ask the same question, who is actually going to buy it? Who is going to get the credit card? Doesn't even matter if it's B2C or B2B. Yeah, well, everybody, or these large groups of people. No, that's the wrong answer, man. You lost it. You have to have a very clear definition of who is that person who wants to buy the product and then understand why they actually buy the product. And you'd rather have 100 super fans who go around and tell, oh my god, this is the best thing in the world, you've got to try it, instead of like 1,000 people saying, mate, okay, I can use it, but if something better comes around, I use that. Because that creates success stories. That is like what you want. It serves those who really, truly need you. And that is usually a niche. So when people build a product for, basically everybody produces. Yeah, that means nobody will use it. So the more niche, the more specific it is. I'm having, my product is targeting first semester students in the University of Cyprus. That's a very clear target group, and a gazillion of ideas come to your idea how to reach that target group, including sitting at that cafeteria and just talking to these people. That's easy, but yeah, it's basically built for every student in Europe. Not so easy. So maybe will it expand to for every student in Europe? Yes. Should you start with the first semester of University of Cyprus? Absolutely. And now, as you know, who are you actually selling the thing to? You have to do it. And that is where most, especially European startups or people, let's say it, fail. You have to sell. Founders must do sales and marketing, but mainly sales. You have to think of it like you're talking to your users, you're learning what really works, and you're not just trying to close deals, you're basically gathering intelligence. You're like a spy. You really learn when these people start talking, and good salespeople just listen. You don't oversell your stuff. Oh my god, look, this and this works. No, but, hey, tell me about this problem. What's it solving? How does your day look like? What kind of problem can you solve? And that's what we call, what one calls founder-led sales, and you have to embrace it. If you want to start a company, a project, whatever you must sell. There is no way around it. And you have to become great at it. And usually, founders from Europe avoid it. They don't like it, or whatever. But you have to embrace it. You have to do that hustle, what we just saw from that guy in New York, who goes to like the WeWork and puts up the donuts, or puts like flyers in magazines. The US isn't just smarter in terms of startups, they just knock on more doors than the average European founder, at least from the stuff we see in every other investor sees. So, and again, you have, maybe it's also a mindset problem. You don't have to see as this like, used car salesman pitch. Oh, look, it's great. Come on, no money. Come on, my friend. I make a good price. It's really understanding the needs of a person. It's basically a spy, and it helps you to define your target user very, very clearly. The more you talk to people, and that only works if you personally reach out. You can't hide behind some like email campaign or whatever. You have to do everything. You have to find them on LinkedIn. You have to email them. You have to call them. Ultimately, you have to have 40%, or at least online. And if you do that, and there are more people who are just willing to, because if you solve their problem, awesome. And then you have to listen. Again, don't oversell. Listen. Customer rants are gold. If a customer starts to tell you what is shitty with the current solution they're using, why his preferred whatever, even why he doesn't like his current coffee shop, but okay, it's a convenience around the corner. But if they would just have decaf, whatever, okay, maybe you put a coffee place, which coffee is everybody says that. Just listen to what people are annoyed about. That tells you the most about the stuff you actually want to build. Again, this is not software, this is basically every product. Story about that. Personal story. So I said I started my first company together with two other people in the late 90s, and we got the first client. The client was a German company. They were called Messer Griesheim. It's a very German name. And what Messer Griesheim did is they produced technical gases. Yes. And you wouldn't know what kind of gases exist. There's banana ripening gas for fruit transport. There is cooling gases. There's this funny saying, if the corpse is also old as necessary, it stays cold. Medical gases, whatever. It's really, really weird. But it's a highly complex product. And the reason why we got them as a company, because they reached out to all kinds. They reached out to us, because the CTO somehow found us on the internet, but they also reached out to IBM and Oracle and all these large companies. And he sent us an email, I think it was Thursday or Friday, 4:35 p.m. And he said, I found about your product, it's very interesting, we will have like some requirements soon, when is maybe a good time to send us more information. And what my colleague, co-founder did, he just picked up the phone and called him 3 minutes later after he got the email. And he said, oh my God, that never happened to me in the last 20 years. He just picked up the phone, it's that easy. So in the end, we won them as a customer, SAP side. But they didn't, and at that time we were producing a software which managed basically large websites. Huge web presences with hundreds of thousands of pages over multiple languages, different continents, whatever. Back in the days it was like a huge thing. And they just didn't want to have content, they also had a different requirement because they also mix custom gases. Custom gases, what customers require with certain components. And usually they talk to a salesperson and he looks first into a huge catalog, whether this is a good idea to mix those two gases, whether it's like dangerous or make boom or whatever. And then the chemist looks on it and finds out, yeah, okay. And this is a hugely complicated process. And what they would offer to the customers is, hey, mix your gas online and basically bring in that purchase order electronically. We said, okay. I mean, at the time we were like 4 people. And we said, well, we really don't want to build another product because we barely can manage the one product we have with the resources we have. So what we in the end decided is we build that and build it right into our main core product. Something which didn't have anything to do with our product. So that led to the interesting point that, hidden with the feature flag, every customer of ours got automatically gas mix configurator. They just didn't know about it. If you would ask any software expert in the world, is that scalable? No. Does it create technical debt? Yes. But did it allow us to close the customer very quickly? Yes, it did, and that's why we did it. And while we did it, we learned what are the requirements of integrating custom requirements from the customer. So it led up in building our first programming interface, our first API, and so we landed in way more enterprise deals because that was actually turned out what many large companies wanted. And at that time, you have to be creative in solutions. Don't fear any unscalable hacks, which may sound weird at the moment. Just do it. Make them happy fast. When you're at that point, you will realize that the launch is just the start. Because let's say you got your first customers, you really hustle, people love it, people pay for the product. Then it comes to iteration. And basically, that just means you refine your product with more information from new customers and data. That whole process, which I just said, basically never stops. See a startup as a kind of a series of experiments you run with your existing new customers. You launch, you get results, you tweak, repeat and rinse. And it's very interesting. One person got very successful with this strategy, and that's Jeff Bezos from Amazon. Since Amazon went public in 1997, he published a shareholders letter every year. And they are still gold. They are all available online. I can only highly recommend this. It's better as every business course you might get in this world. It has so much insights. And basically his philosophy back in the days, in 1997, was it's always day one. We cannot become a company on day 2 where we become complacent and build up too much bureaucracy and whatever. We have to put day on, and that means putting customers first, hustling, finding great solutions for customers. So that's basically the mantra of Amazon. And it's always an iteration. Sometimes people think, okay, now I got my product ready, even first MVP, and now I launch it, it's gonna be this huge big bang. I mean, they even cite from the internet product ton, whatever, and we got voted #1 on product tons this week, this month, or whatever. Nobody cares. It's a big launch, and yeah, it might get you another customer, but this is not the goal. This This is like an iterative loop. You iterate your way to greatness. And you measure that. You measure your growth. You measure, oh, 5% growth every week. That's awesome. If you get that done, I mean, the laws of compounding or the mathematics of compounding are fascinating. So each cycle you just fix what hurts, amplify what's great. And that is not just the product. This is the whole experience. That regards to pricing. Many people don't get that right at the beginning. You either underprice or overprice. That is all onboarding experience of a product. There's the customer support. There is, of course, sales, and so on and so on. So you really have to prioritize all the later on, really ruthlessly what you actually want to do, what you don't want to do. Because the most important thing about starting any project is, and that's also what most people don't get right, because everybody says, oh my God, WhatsApp, yeah, that's a great idea, I could have built that. No, you couldn't, because you didn't. Ideas are useless, only execution works. That's the only thing. Somebody sat down and somebody did all the tasks. Somebody stopped at 6 a.m. in the morning and put those flyers in those magazines. That's what counts. The execution is important. And while you do that, don't forget to celebrate all that with your super fans you acquired on the way, because people love updates. I mean, if you're the first backer of some company or whatever, and you basically covered it, and you get always the letter from the CEO or from the founder, hey, by the way, now we did this, now we did that. People love to be kept in the loop while you're doing these iterations. So that's basically the magic. You have to launch now. I think if you just take away one thing is, whatever idea you have or might have in the future, do it faster than you think. Be embarrassed of it. Do it really, really fast. Launch early. Perfection comes later. Ship ASAP, as soon as possible. Do things that don't scale. Hustle hard to find first users. Just is your main job. If you're not building the product, you should be talking to people who are potential customers who would buy, even if they get it for free. It doesn't matter. You need this feedback. It's not about selling something or making money with it. It's about getting the information, the intel. It's uncomfortable, but again, get these super fans. And they are there. And if they are not there, maybe your product is not right. You haven't found your right niche yet. You have to pivot. You have to rethink it. You have to find a different angle. You have to talk to these users. If somebody builds something in a vacuum, you'll end up like the story I told about my friend. You have to listen first to people who will be your customers later. Founders do sales. First growth is always positive. Don't hype. There are also these people who come and, yeah, we got this great marketing automatization tool, so I can segregate now and find out automatically who are all first semester students of University of Cyprus and then send them an email. I mean, what would you do if you get an email? I mean, you just click on spam or ignore it or whatever. But if somebody sits down and say, hey, let me talk to you about my new great energy drink, my new great software, my new whatever they do. That's the thing. Don't hide behind any email stuff or whatever. Iterate, improve, be able to have the mindset to stay flexible. People will tell you, oh no, this is great, but that doesn't, that's a total no. Or if it doesn't do X, I can't use it. And this is the real valuable feedback. Because otherwise, if you send an email, maybe they even look at your product and see, yeah, it's great at X, but it doesn't do Y. But you never will hear about that. You will only hear about that if you ask somebody, tell me, what is your opinion? What is your honest opinion? And that ends up all in just making something people do. That's the whole magic of going from idea to a successful project, whatever. You have to make something people want, and you can't come up with it in a vacuum. You have to really understand it by talking to people and hustling. So my challenge to you would be, if you are thinking about something, even if it's far in the future, do yourself a challenge. See what you can do within 1 week. In 1 week you can at least put up a web page and say, hey, sign up here for, we'll be doing ABC. If you want to open that coffee shop, print some flyers and say, hey, by the way, would you come around here, get some $5 coupon if you send that back. Whatever you do. Again, startups don't take off by themselves. Founders make startups take off. everything who thinks is some kind of magic. You just have to build the right product and the people will come. They never come. It's all hustling by the founders. You have to embrace all the early chaos which comes with it. It's sure stuff will go wrong and that's all fine. But failing is basically